Queensland Day, June the 6th. I've never really thought about Queensland Day. I've certainly never celebrated it. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the places around the CBD that have something to do with the separation of Queensland from New South Wales in 1859. I'll also see if there are any buildings left from that year that we can still visit today. And also, I don't know, just have a look at some places where interesting buildings no longer stand. Who was responsible for the separation of the two colonies? All right, let's go and take a look. Oh, I better bring the camera too. It was in the 1850s that there was growing dissatisfaction up here amongst the locals in the Moreton Bay area with the authorities in Sydney. There seemed to be very little in the way of money or resources trickling up here. And little Moreton Bay up here felt a little left out.
An early and vocal proponent of separation was John Dunmore Lang, the firebrand Scottish Presbyterian who brought the first free settlers, apart from the German missionaries at Nunda, out to Moreton Bay in 1849. He was the representative for Moreton Bay in the New South Wales Legislative Council. As early as 1844, 2 years after the official closing of the Moreton Bay penal settlement, he was agitating for the creation of a new colony, but he had no luck.
It wasn't until 1850 that the British government passed the Australian Colonies Government Bill. This allowed for the creation of new colonies here. Queen Victoria has a willy, apparently.
Yes, she does. Penis. Can you see it now?
I do. Oh, for heaven's sake, only someone from Liverpool would find that.
Are you a tour guide, are you?
No, I'm a vlogger. I'm actually from Liverpool in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've been to Liverpool in England.
Okay,
I love it.
There you go. So yeah, no, but that's the thing that's... My mother showed me this many years ago when I was a young fella. So
where is the statue in Liverpool? Is it outside the station at Lime Street?
It's Derby School. There's actually a dome for here as well.
Is that down near the Liver building and the Cunard building?
It's in that general direction.
Yeah. I've been down there a few times. Okay.
So that's where that is. So there you go, boss.
Queen Victoria has a willy.
There you go. Well, that's my mum put it, then my Liverpoolian, and not. Never read that in the history books.
No, it should be in there, definitely. Thank you for that.
That's quite all right. Nice chatting to you. Anyway, enjoy.
Hello.
Are you? He's a big fan from California.
Oh, right. You've seen the show? Oh, God heavens. Hi, I'm shooting one now. You're from California.
That's right. Can we take a photo?
Absolutely. Let's take a photo. What are you up to?
I'm not a Patreon subscriber, though. I'm embarrassed. I will be now.
Don't be embarrassed. It's cool.
So this brings us to the year 1859. The population of Queensland, according to the Bureau of Statistics, was only 23,520, and that refers only to European settlers. The indigenous population is unknown, and there was no way to know as there were still vast tracts of the colony unexplored. This map shows the limits of European expansion in that year, 1859.
It was on the 6th of June in 1859 that Queen Victoria signed the letters patent for the creation of the colony of Queensland. And she did this at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight on the south coast of England. She died there in 1901.
It was on the 9th of December that Queensland's first governor, Sir George Bowen, and his wife Diamantina arrived at Moreton Bay aboard the man-of-war vessel Cordelia. They were transferred to the vessel the Breadalbane at the mouth of the Brisbane River, which then carried them upriver, where they disembarked the following morning, the 10th of December, at the City Botanical Gardens. He and his party then travelled along George Street, Queen Street, then up the hill to Adelaide House.
So who was George Bowen? He was an Irishman from Ulster. As a young man, he studied the classics at Trinity College in Oxford. Later on, he became the colonial secretary to the government of the Ionian Islands off the west coast of Greece. They are Greek islands, but at the time they were a British protectorate. And by all accounts, the locals there were quite happy to be under British administration because the British improved roads and communication, schools, hospitals, etc. Later again, Bowen became the governor of New Zealand and died of boredom as a result. His wife was Diamantina di Roma. She was from the Ionian Islands. Her family were an aristocratic one. They were originally of Venetian origin, as in Venice, not the blinds. This is her statue here behind the old government house at QUT Gardens Point. I'm coming up to what used to be known as Adelaide House. This was built for Dr. Hobbs. He was the town's chief medical officer and he was also a politician. The house was built by Andrew Petrie. It was constructed in 1853 and in its day it was considered to be the finest house in all of Brisbane. Today the house is used as the deanery for St John's Cathedral, which is right behind me, right there. St John's Cathedral would not exist for many decades yet. The groundbreaking ceremony didn't occur until 1901. And just as a side note, the very first St John's Church used to exist around about here outside the Brisbane Square Library. The former Treasury Casino was just across the way there. This was the site of a convict lumberyard. The church was built into the old tool shed, and if you look closely at this photo you can see the windows. Well, they've tried to make them just that little bit more churchy looking. The second St John's Church used to exist here in Queen's Gardens. And if I was here between the years of 1854 and 1904, I would not only be inside it, but I'd be standing at the altar. And there's a little memorial plaque down there. Dr. Hobbs vacated the house so that Governor Bowen and his wife could move in here until the purpose-built government house was completed, and that happened in 1862. Let's go and have a look.
The 10th of December 1859 was a hot day. The officials gathered at Adelaide House with throngs of onlookers in the grounds about. Justice Alfred Lutwich administered the oath to make Bowen the governor, and then the colonial secretary, Robert Herbert, read the Queen's commission for Bowen to take on this role. Acting Secretary Abram Moriarty then read the Queen's proclamation for the establishment of the colony of Queensland, finally separating it from the colony of New South Wales.
There's a chicken. Hello. What's going on? Hello. What's up with chickens? What's up with chickens? What the hell are you doing here? I have no food for you. No, I did not bring any. You're very smart. Hello, well don't you come through here. There's some ladies' shoes there too. Okay. You like a guard dog? A guard chicken. So the 10th of December became known as Separation Day, and it was celebrated every year as a public holiday until 1920. And there was the separation flag. This is what it looked like. It was also known as the Moreton Bay flag. It didn't last too long, and I doubt few people today would even be aware that Queensland once had a separation flag. Now you can't really see it from here because the trees are in the way, but trust me, that's quite a steep and sharp drop down to Adelaide Street below. Since Queen Victoria signed the letters patent for the creation of Queensland on the 6th of June in 1859, the 6th of June has since been adopted as Queensland's birthday. So what was Brisbane like in 1859? What kind of buildings did we have back then? And do any of them still exist today? Well, one building that doesn't exist anymore but used to be right here is the former male convict barracks. It began where McDonald's is, just there, and went about halfway up the mall that way. This is what it looked like.
This photograph, taken in 1859 in the year of separation, shows the intersection of Queen Street and Edward Street. The photo shows Queen Street heading southwest towards South Brisbane. The windmill at Spring Hill, that was completed in 1828.
The commissariat store was completed in 1829. The top floor, though, was added in 1913. And also the female factory, the women's convict barracks, which we're here on what is now the side of the GPO.
The Victory Hotel was built in 1855 and is today Brisbane's oldest surviving hotel. Back in 1859, it was known as the Prince of Wales Hotel. Andrew Petrie's house on the corner of Wharf and Queen Street was completed in 1837.
St Stephen's Chapel, completed in 1850. Go across the road and see if we can go inside and have a look. By the way, it's the oldest church in Queensland. Now, unless someone knows something that I don't know, I would say that this house is the oldest surviving house in Brisbane City. Newstead House, I believe, dates to 1846, and Jimboomba House is around about the same time, but they're of course a bit further out. Here in the CBD, I would say that this is our oldest surviving house.
It was in 1882 that the land in front of Adelaide House was lowered to extend Adelaide Street northeast towards Fortitude Valley. This was done to allow for easier transport access between North Brisbane, the city, and Fortitude Valley.
Well, that's the story of the separation of Queensland from New South Wales, who was involved and where it happened. And where it happened is just behind me there at Adelaide House. Very interesting story. I never really thought about, well, Queensland Day for a start, but now we know where that comes from. That's when Queen Victoria signed the letters patent, 6th of June 1859, Queensland Day. Thanks very much for watching the video. Don't forget to hit that like and the subscribe button and the bell notification, and I'll see you again on the next walk. Oh, and thanks very much to the wonderful staff of the Treasury Hotel. Had a wonderful lunch there. Thank you.